Hello everybody, here we are continuing on with our season previews, and in this one we're going to be covering the Winnipeg Jets, talking about if they're going to be able to fly high in the standings again. But before we get started with it, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So the little wheel spinner thing that we've been doing, picked the Jets for our third team to cover, and in this one we get to talk about a Winnipeg side that ended up having a really good season last year, as they had 110 points, they had over 50 wins, and were a club that was feeling dangerous come playoff time. They even went out and made some additions. Unfortunately though, the Avs went around and took care of business in the first round and said, "You are done, it's over with." And now we get to see a Jets side that is hoping to be able to live up the expectations of last year, but actually do more than that. But I do think that looking at this team, you could see them either venture one way, in a positive way, or go back down to kind of being that 95-point team that was a fringe playoff side that wasn't going to be expected to do a whole lot. So with all of these things kind of moving around here for the Jets, what are some storylines to watch out for in this season? So the first storyline is going to be about their new head coach. Now, Rick Bowness was in charge of this team for 2 seasons, and they were pretty good in that time. 46 wins in year 1, and they were able to make the playoffs before losing to the eventual champions, before, of course, having 110 points last year, and then bowing out in the first round. Now, the thing with Bowness and this team was they were a good regular season side, but the playoff success wasn't there. But now they have a new head coach, and the concern, of course, is going to be how do they have a new head coach produce with this team that already was in the hunt for the President's Trophy last year, if not the Western Conference in the top spot. So looking at the guy that's going to be in charge is Scott Arniel. Arniel has actually been a head coach before, so that is very nice, with the Columbus Blue Jackets previously, and more importantly has been part of Winnipeg for a minute now with Bowness, and last year even went 10-5-2 in front of the start of the season when Bowness was stepping away from the team because of a reason with his wife, I believe, if I remember correctly. Anyway, things went well for him and the team in that time, which is a positive. You would see things like Kyle Connor get out to a monster start to the year, 14 goals in 17 games played, as well as Josh Morrissey getting a lot of minutes, which could kind of help us see what the indicators are going to be looking at in terms of the lines and seeing who could possibly be able to benefit from this. Now, Kyle Connor has been a bit of a cheat code when it comes to goal scoring in the past like 4 or 5 years, it feels like, but still, I want to be looking at those things. But we will probably have to wait a little bit to see exactly how things play out in the beginning and see how they go, probably the first month or so. And I think that, like we've already talked about, with him already being a head coach and doing well with the team before, these are all kind of making me lean towards, oh, things could go well for them. This side was probably hoping to score more goals, and maybe they did. In fact, they scored even more than they were expected to. But with the defensive game being decent, and then Connor Hellebuck having a Vezina caliber season, these position themselves well to be a playoff side again, with Arniel and the familiarity, again, in a better spot than most teams probably would be when they have a new head coach that is joining a side that has big aspirations. The second talking point is, can the Jets continue to bury their competition? One thing that really stood out for Winnipeg last year and how they were able to pick up a lot of wins is the fact that if they had a lead after the first period, it was pretty much automatic. And I mean automatic in the sense where they had the lead 29 games after 20 minutes of play. They would go on to win 27 times. They went 27-2-0 in that stretch and had 68 first period goals. And seeing this team, they were able to play well when they had the lead. Now, I'm not saying things went perfectly, as in a lot of ways they had a low expected goals for percentage, things of that nature, but they had the second most goals, I believe, in the span in the entire league when they were leading. So while maybe things were changed a little bit where they got bottled up or they were trying to play a little bit more passive, the point stands that when this team has the advantage, they're probably going to go on to win, and that's not really shocking. But to see something like this, where 29 times you get 27 opportunities where you go on to win, you're going to be in a great position to succeed. And it's not even like that they were a bad team when they were able to be tied after one period. In fact, they would go on to win more games when they were tied than when they would go on to lose, as I believe they had 19 wins when they were tied after one period of play and 14 losses. So again, advantage is still in Winnipeg's favor. They even went a respectable 17-20-4 when their opponent scored first. I know that probably doesn't seem that impressive, but in terms of the possible points percentage, this is nice. And seeing a Jets team that their groundwork is having a defensive game that could be good, as well as relying on Connor Hellebuck to be a workhorse in the season, you could see, again, some things are going to be working for this side as they try to push for 50 more wins. And this is where you are going to be watching out to see if they don't do this, if they slide a lot. If they're a really bad first period team, are they going to be able to play comeback? From what we saw last year, not likely, and that's where it is a little bit odd to me, But for the Jets, they are comfortable playing in front. Every team is, but they seem even more comfortable than most sides. And the third and final talking point is whether or not they need Connor Hellebuyck to have another Vezina caliber season. Winnipeg's year did not end the way they wanted, but for Connor Hellebuyck, it ended pretty darn well as he won the Vezina for the second time in his career, as well as the Jennings, and was a player that was one of the main focal points, if not the reason why, that they were able to go on and win how they did. Yes, the defensive numbers weren't bad, but they weren't top 5 or anything like that. A lot of this was the fact that you had Connor Hellebuyck playing over 60 games and doing what he does best, being a really good goalie. And he is probably going to go on and finish his career in Winnipeg with a great career and then some. But this year especially, I do think that if they want to maintain what they've been doing, Connor's going to have to be the guy. Now, why is that the case? Well, of course, you could say, well, every team wants their goalie to be able to have a Vezina caliber year because it means they're going to be in a well and truly good position to make the playoffs. But it's a little bit deeper than that. They lost Laurent Brossoit, and he was able to have a nice year. He's able to be a good player back-to-back years. Didn't play for them, though, the season prior to this, but I just talked about him in my Chicago Blackhawks season preview. He's gone, so that kind of stinks. But then they've got Kakinen. I think that is going to be their backup goalie at the moment. He could be good, he could be not. But when you have a goalie like Connor, who is able to play 3/4 of the year and let you be in the game, that is going to be a nice bonus. But like we talked about, there's more things than just having Connor play well. You have the fact that with Brossoit gone, if he's dealt with an injury, that could be a bigger issue. And I think that their forward group especially is going to be a team that they are 1 or 2 injuries away from being in a world of hurt. Kyle Connor especially, if he goes out of the lineup, their goal scoring could dry up a little bit. And if you would see 2 or 3 injuries for this team especially, I think they would be in a spot that would not be very good. Whereas some other teams like Dallas, if they dealt with 3 injuries, would probably be in a better situation. So looking at all of this in terms of wanting to be a top tier team, yes, they're probably going to want to have Connor be able to win the Vezina for the 3rd time in his career at season's end. So overall, what are my thoughts for Winnipeg going into the season? Well, they are a side that does have a lot to prove, as even though they were really good last year, they haven't really done anything for a minute. And with the contracts they've given out to certain players, they are not really living up to those expectations. In fact, out of all the playoff runs in this version of the Jets history, there's only been one that's been memorable. And for this Jets team, regular season success has kind of been established in recent years, but they haven't been able to do a whole lot. It's not like Vegas, it's not like Tampa Bay, where they are handing out these deals and they're grasping at the past and saying, well, we could just get back to there and maybe get one more run. We could possibly get another championship. For Winnipeg, it's about getting there for the first time, and I do think that their window could be closing in terms of being a true contender. I don't know, because they could go out there and make me look very silly this year, but I do feel like this team should be a good side this upcoming season. The biggest question for them, though, is of course you have Nashville that's going to be competing for top 3 in the division, or at least they could. Colorado could be a little bit weaker, but we do know that this Winnipeg team is going to need their stars to stay healthy and be productive, because the Jets, while they were a 110-point team last year, does feel like a team that could slide a bit and then maybe be one of those sides where you say they're easy pickings come playoff time. Not saying that's going to be the case, but I do feel odd about this side. But I think at the moment I am leaning towards them making the playoffs, but we get to see what comes of it in that run. So before we get done with this video, I want to know what you have to say. What are your thoughts on Winnipeg entering this season? Do you feel like they could go out there and win the division for the first time in a minute? Do you think that they will be able to be top 3? Do you think they make the playoffs as a wild card? If they fail to make the playoffs, tell me why you think that would happen. Let me know all that stuff down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you're new, as we're trying to pump out a lot of season previews. This will already be our 3rd one, so 3 in 3 days. Ideally 32 and 32 would be great. Not sure if that'll happen. Anyway, everybody, please make sure to stay safe. Have a great night, and Eagle of Hockey, all right. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.